5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You are now tuned in to the St. Clair Speaks Show.
What's going on, guys? It's your hobby, David St. Clair Speaks, and you are now tuned in to the St. Clair Speaks Show.
You are now tuned in to the St. Clair Speaks Show.
Welcome back to the St. Clair Speak Show podcast. I'm your host, your hobby St. Clair, sitting down with another awesome guest. Now, this is someone I consider a friend. So I'm a little on the fence about having her on the show because, you know, when you have a good friend and good people, you want to be stingy and keep them to yourself. But we are here because stories inspire, and I'm super excited to have Carly Worth on the St. Clair Speak Show podcast today because she has been a real, I would like to say, a real impact for me in terms of learning the ropes in real estate, like learning how to network, relationships, and all that good stuff. But let's really dive into the sauce. Who is Carly? For those of you that don't know, Carly exemplifies integrity, high energy, hard work, and innovative service in every aspect of her real estate transactions. She specializes in the investment side of real estate, specifically off-market properties. She is known in Connecticut as the off-market queen. Due to her connections and her off-market deal flow, her niche involves her working with investors ranging from single-family flips to apartment buildings. Carly is proficient in communication and customer service. And I do want to add this. One thing about Carly that I would definitely say is she is certified stamped. I can't tell you how many times I've had like a question or I felt stuck and I would just shoot her a text message or a call and she would be in a meeting, but she would always get back to me. And I'm not even her client. So when you have someone like that constantly is just helpful, resourceful, you really want to make sure that, you know, you give them their flowers. So Carly, I want to welcome you onto the St. Clair Speak Show podcast. Please give our listeners a 3 to 5 minute introduction on yourself, your brand, your business, and what brings you onto the show.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I feel like we've known each other for like a pretty long time. We talk all the time. So it's really cool to like actually be sitting here with you and just having a good, organic, flowing conversation. So, I mean, you covered a good amount of it. I know you and I both relate in the fitness aspect. So prior to real estate, I was in the fitness industry since I was 18. I still currently have my own personal training business that I run as well as real estate. It's always been my passion. It probably always will be. Just to like help people. It feels like I'm, you know, really making an impact in people's lives. So prior to real estate, I managed a gym over by Yale University, and I had my private training clients as well. And then, as we all know, COVID flipped the world upside down. But truly for the better. I think like that's one thing I take away. Like I'm so blessed that, I mean, obviously not blessed for the bad things that happened during COVID, but I'm blessed because it really forced me to step outside my comfort zone and force myself to grow. So, other than the fitness industry, my main gig is real estate. I specialize with investors. I started off in single families for the most part. I did my first 2 single family deals, my first 6 days of being licensed, and I had no clue what the heck I was doing. And obviously it was during COVID, so I didn't really have any guidance at all. I just was kind of forced to figure it out on my own, and I fell into the investment niche, and that I didn't even know about. Like I just knew about your typical, you know, residential real estate. Like, oh, I'm going to have to work every weekend. I'm going to have to show a million houses, and I'm going to have to do open houses and do this and that. And I feel like I was so desperate for like something that I could really build that I was willing to do that at the time. And now, you know, once I was probably 6 months in, I'm like, yeah, I'm never doing that. That's not for me. That's not my vibe. So I am so blessed to be where I am just from knowing people and networking and connecting with amazing individuals, and just to get to the point where I no longer have to chase people for business. Like everyone kind of comes to me. I'm, you know, friends with a lot of the people I work with, which is really awesome and special. And that's part of the reason I love the investment space, is because it's repeat business so much that you actually know these people and you know about their lives. And it's more, it's just a little bit more personable than doing your residential transactions where you see them maybe once every 15 years and that's that. So that's a little bit about me and my business. I am mostly off market. And then if my clients, flip a property, then I list it on the MLS and that sort of thing. Obviously I get buyers who are open to on market listings, but just the space that I've been focusing on for so long is primarily off market. And those are the connections that I've really developed.
Look at you being so modest. Carly, you are a beast. You are a beast.
Well, thank you.
I've learned this from, something my mentor told me a while back, and it always resonated with me. He said, your hobby, real estate, is a team sport. And I've learned, especially in this industry, mainly like working with you in particular, it's like not all relationships need to be transactional. Can you talk to us about the importance of relationships and networking and connections from the real estate aspect?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you said it perfectly. Like you can't view everybody or every situation just as a transaction. And I think that's been probably one of the hardest things for me in real estate. Like from the beginning was, this feels so transactional. Like it doesn't feel personal. It doesn't feel like genuine at all. And that's why I've continued to keep my personal training business, because to me that feels super genuine. But now that I'm in the business where I'm constantly talking to people, like, I have clients who I talk to multiple times a week who, know a lot about my life, like constantly checking in on me. Like I just relocated to Dallas and they're constantly reaching out to me, seeing how I'm doing. And I think that's probably the most important thing. And even before I was in real estate, my friends were like, you need to do sales. Like you should do real estate, or you should do tech sales. Like you would kill it. And I'm like, I'm not a salesy person though. To me, that feels like it's not genuine, and that's not my personality at all. And I realized though that like you can be in sales and be super genuine and not be salesy. Like I'm totally like the opposite of being like, I'm not salesy at all. But I think when you have that rapport and that relationship with people, they instantly trust and respect you. And it comes from a good place. Like everybody knows, like I have their best intentions in mind, and I'm not just trying to like, sell a property. Like I actually care about them and their future. And obviously people invest in real estate in order to create financial freedom for the future. So it's my goal and my obligation to make sure those people, are making a good decision, and I'm not just trying to close a deal.
No, that is spot on, because I can't, I've said this earlier as soon as we started recording, but I can't tell you how many times where it's like you've done little things. To you, it could have been little things, but for me, it was huge, right? So when you look back at like the impact, like people don't forget. Like I don't forget, because I know this industry is like, it's every person for themselves, and it could be like that, and it doesn't have to be like that. And when you talk about, you're not salesy, like you're so genuine, in terms of just like helping people. Like you're not obligated to, do the things that you do, but you just help. And I appreciate that. So I just wanted that on the record, where it's like, like I generally appreciate it. So I want to swing back to something. I know we're still on the topic of relationships, but I heard like a snippet of you on a previous podcast, and you were talking about you were in a Facebook real estate group. And that's actually how we met. When I listened to the snippet, I'm like, wait, because I was always wondering, like, how did we actually meet? How did we connect?
I know her.
Yeah, but that's how we met. And you mentioned, like, I guess with the pandemic, around that time period is actually when we met and connected. But from where you're at now, I know you just relocated. Yeah. Can you talk to us about where you're at now versus, what was that, 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago?
I just had my 2 year in December, so just over 2 years.
So talk to us about, like you kind of like just growing from that starting point to where you're at now.
So in the beginning, I'm a big perfectionist. I am probably my own worst enemy, which I think sometimes is good and bad, but it was a little detrimental in real estate. Just starting off, there's so much pressure. Like it's up to you. Like you're either going to make it or you're not. Like you don't have people, like you're not a salary. You're not like, oh, okay, I have till the end of the week to hit this deadline. And like, regardless, even if I don't, like, I'm still going to get paid. And I think that adds a lot of pressure when there's financial pressure and, you know, you think about your why, like, why are you doing this? Why are you in real estate? Why do you want to be successful? I think when you think of those things, it really puts into perspective how much you're going to grind to get to what you want and where you want to be. And for me, that was like, failing is never an option in my world. So I was so hard on myself in the beginning, and I was working like, I don't know, 17-hour days, to the point where I was like burnt out. And at the end of the night, I didn't want to talk to anybody who like I actually cared about. And like, I didn't have time for the things that really mattered in life. And I think that kind of put me in a little bit of a depression, if I'm going to be honest with you, between like the pressure, more like internal pressure than external pressure. But also like trying to balance happiness in life and having a work-life balance. Like, that was such a struggle with me for the first year. And I let everybody, I'm not going to say like walk all over me, but I let people into my personal time and my space as well, where I knew I needed that to myself. But I was so hungry for success and I wanted to accelerate so quickly that I let those boundaries be crossed. And it kind of led me to a point where I was like, I don't know if I could do this. Like, this is not worth any amount of money. Like, this stress, this anxiety, like this feeling like I don't have a life, that I can't connect to people anymore. Like, I was really struggling connecting with people that were close to me. Just because I was drained. Like, I was drained. I'm like a very big extrovert, but I'm also an introvert. And when my energy is drained, that's when I need to retract and I need to go be by myself. And I felt like I didn't have that. Like, people texting me at 11:30 at night. Why was I answering them? Because I was hungry for success. And I thought that that would make it look like, hey, you know, this girl's motivated. Like, she's going to work for me. Like, I want to work with her. And I think it was just this unrealistic expectation and presentation of myself where I really did lose myself. And I kind of had this wake up call and this reality check and figured out, this is not sustainable. I will not be successful and I will not be happy. So forget the money. What do I need to do to make myself happy and to sustain this career? Because I do enjoy it. And so far I'm doing really well in it, but what do I need to do to get to a point where I have that work-life balance? So, I mean, my goal was to hit 6 figures my first year, and I did do that, but I felt like it wasn't enjoyable. Like, I wasn't like, yes, like I hit my goal. It was like, okay, well, this year was exhausting and this was not very fulfilling. So I got a work phone. So now I have 2 separate phones. I have auto replies, which you kind of touched upon. So my email has an auto reply. And if I'm in a meeting or it's after hours, my cell phone has an auto reply. And that, I can't tell you the amount of applause I got from, you know, really big, important people. Cause now I'm kind of in a, you know, in an arena where I'm playing with guys who, you know, own thousands of units or are huge developers. And every single one of those people who are at that level have all made comments about my auto replies. And they're like, that is freaking genius. I love that. Like, I respect you so much for doing that. And here I am all along thinking like, oh, people aren't going to think I'm motivated. And now they see me as a businesswoman and not just someone who's just desperate for business. So I think that's been a big change. Also last year, I decided I had like a big life thing happen. And I was like, you know what? I need to enjoy life. And I think I can do this while I'm enjoying life. And I went and I traveled pretty much the world last year. I was in Europe for a month and I had the best month of my career while I was in another country and not working a lot. Like, the time difference was tough. And I'm in Europe. Like, I'm going to a different country every couple of days. Like, I want to fully absorb that and like be in the moment. So I didn't really work that much. And I had the best month of my career. I think I made like $43,000 that month. And I was like, I can do this from anywhere, and I can do it better because I'm happy and I'm living my life and I have positive energy around me because I'm in a good place and I'm attracting that good energy too. So last year I worked harder, or not harder, I worked smarter and was more successful than the year before. So that's kind of where I've been, and that's kind of been my journey over the past 2 years, I would say.
I love that for you. Congratulations, Carla. So, I always pre-prep with my questions, but there are always these questions that come up in the spur of the moment of the conversation. And as I'm listening to your success story, I'm sure you've seen this or you've heard this. There are realtors that have the total opposite of story. Like they just can't get there. So I want to ask you, what is separating a successful realtor versus someone that's unsuccessful? Because I know realtors that are working 2 jobs and they just can't get it done.
Right. I actually was just asked to do a survey on a very similar topic as to what you just spoke about yesterday. So I kind of just was thinking about this yesterday. And I truly, truly think it all comes down to 2 things. I think mentality and mindset is the biggest thing. If you have a big why and you are motivated and you're working, at the end of the day, outer success comes from internal success first. So if you are not internally successful in yourself and you're not taking care of yourself and you're not personally growing, you're never going to be externally successful. And it's just like, it's the same thing with materialistic things. Like happiness comes from within. Going to buy a new Louis bag, I was just having this dilemma in my head earlier. I was like, I really want that freaking bag. And I'm like, no, Carly, you don't need it. It's not going to make you any happier. Like you have a bunch of purses. You don't need any more Louis bags. But it's just, it's stuff like that. It's not going to actually make you happy. It's not adding any value to your life. And so I think it all comes down to mindset first and foremost. Like, where are your priorities? If you're going to be a real estate agent or you're going to be, a self-employed person in any industry, you need to be motivated. You need to be able to hold yourself accountable. You're not going to have somebody standing over you saying, oh, you need to do this. Okay, this project's due tomorrow at noon. Here's what needs to get done. You're not going to have anybody guiding you. Like you need to get out there and you need to get it done. And the only way you're going to do that is if you have that perseverance and you are motivated. And I think a lot of people lack that self-motivation, and that is the most important thing in real estate. Otherwise, you are not going to be successful if you're waiting for things to just come and fall in your lap, because they're not coming. Maybe once you get to a certain point, it does, like word of mouth and that sort of thing. And all my business has pretty much been that. But in regular residential real estate, total opposite. I think the other most important thing is being personable. And that's not something you can really teach. I think personality is huge. Being able to genuinely connect with people, that in itself wins business. Because when people like you and respect you and trust you, that they're going to work with you. They would rather work with you than work with someone that they don't have any rapport with, that they don't know as a person, they don't know anything about. It's just specifically a business transaction. Like nobody wants to work with somebody who's like boring or is just like money hungry. They want to work with people that they know they can trust and have their best interests in mind. So I would say those are probably like the 2 most important things about being successful in this industry.
No, that's spot on. All right. So, how do you stay up to date with the latest real estate investment trends and strategies?
I would say just by having organic conversations with the people that I interact with on a daily basis. Like a couple months ago, like apartment building conversions, like people are taking hotels and converting them to apartment buildings. That was huge last year. That was like one of the biggest multifamily asset class that was out there. Obviously now with the cost of materials, like developing has kind of shifted. So it has to be like a really great opportunity. I'm actually working on one right now in South Dakota, the municipality is giving a third of the funding, and the state is giving a third of the funding to an investor who wants to come in and build more infrastructure. So the developer only has to come in at a third. So they're basically getting the project at a third of the cost, which that's where it makes sense to still develop. But in most cases, everything like land is overpriced right now because there's not enough multifamilies anymore. So land is super expensive, but they don't make sense to build anymore. So it's just like talking to different people, like flips. Those were huge when I got into the business. Like that's all people were doing. Nobody wanted multifamily holds. It was all flips. Now nobody's really flipping anymore because obviously the market has shifted. The cost of materials is different. And now you don't have those definite margins like you used to, because the market is starting to go back to kind of a middle ground or more of a buyer market per se versus a seller's market. Everybody wants to flip because everyone's going to pay above and beyond what they should be. So it made sense then. So I think it's just, for me, it's about who I talk to, who I interact with in the investment space. Obviously, like you can see on MLS, like what the inventory is looking like, how many days on market are things sitting now. You know, a year and a half ago, you were getting 70 offers in 24 hours, sight unseen, all cash, plus 300,000 over asking. That's not happening anymore. So I think for me, those are the two things. It's, you know, the market stats on MLS, but it's also natural conversations with the people that I'm interacting with daily and what they're looking for.
Very good point. All right. So my next question, I always come up with questions like, again, in the conversation. So
that's okay. I'm good on the fly. I don't like preparing.
I was just saying this too. Like there's sometimes where it's like, I don't like to overly prepare.
No, because then you mess up, because then you're thinking about what you're actually going to say. And then you're like, okay, did I hit everything? Did I get it all? Did I get it all out yet?
Mm-hmm.
So that's fine.
Not exactly. So I'll go with something that's not on my script. Biggest misconception when it comes to the real estate industry.
That it's easy. I think so many. And the only reason I say that is because I just spoke to two of my friends who are both in nursing, and nursing jobs are really hard for some reason to get in Dallas, and they don't pay well. So they're like asking me about what I do. Actually, there was 3 conversations like that this week, not 2. But they're like, what? Are you kidding me? How do you do that? You need to teach me this. Like, why do I not know about this? I'm like, well, because most people aren't doing it, first of all. And second of all, it's not that easy. I'm making it sound easy because I've had success in it. And for me, it wasn't easy, but I took the right steps to set myself up to the point where now it just flows by itself. But everyone has this misconception like, oh, I'm just going to get into real estate. Like I can make so much money in real estate. And I'm not going to lie, that was my initial thought too. But it's not that easy. I think the stat is like 87% or something of real estate agents quit their first year because they don't make any money. Most people don't even get a deal their first year. So everyone thinks it's like a cakewalk, but that's just because you're hearing about the people who are successful in it. You're not hearing about the people who are failing, because most people aren't going to display or brag about their failings. So I think people are only seeing like the good parts of real estate, and it's not that easy. And a lot of people figure that out once they spend the time and money to get their license. And then they're sitting there and they're writing 700 cards out to try to, get a listing or to get a buyer or whatever they're doing, spending hundreds of dollars on marketing and Facebook ads and direct mail. It's not easy. Like, not everybody in this industry makes it, I would say. And I've told people that too, because they're like, oh, the real estate market's oversaturated. I'm like, yeah. And probably about 10% are the ones actually producing.
And
so that I would say is the biggest misconception.
I'm glad you said that, because it is so true. It is so true.
It is.
It's so true. How many times I thought I had a deal and I'm reaching out to Carly and it just falls through, but It happens. It happens. And I think you were someone that kind of like helped me understand that, hey, like this is real estate. Like this happens.
Yeah.
And it's actually normal. And I think the other thing that kind of put me at ease is don't take it personal. I think that's the other piece where it's like
which is hard for me. I'm not gonna lie, but I've gotten good.
Yeah, it's tough where it's like you have your heart and soul on that deal, like, oh yeah, it's gonna close, and it falls through, something happens, inspection didn't go well, or title wasn't clear. It happens. So my next question for you is, how do you balance the needs and the priorities of multiple clients with different investment goals?
Ooh, that's a good one. I was kind of thinking about this the other day to myself. I'm like, how do I remember all this stuff? How do I keep these people straight? Like, I have like 70 different people texting me and then 100 other people emailing me a day. I'm like, how do I keep these people straight? And I think for me, it's been easier to remember the people who I speak to on a daily, or not a daily basis, but a weekly basis. And it's easier for me to know, in the people I've worked with in the past, they're the ones I instantly send deals to first, because I know that they can close. I know that they're reliable. I know they're going to get it done. So I think it's more, again, it goes back to that repeat business. The people I've worked with and continue to work with, you know, I know more of what they want. I know what they're looking for. And I've had people when I started in the business being like, oh, I just want a good deal. And it's like, okay, well, that doesn't really work for me, because what you think is a good deal, someone else can think is a trash deal, and vice versa, because everybody has different criteria. Everybody has a different exit strategy. So, and some people are more versed in different exit strategies versus other people. You know, some people can get super, super creative depending how long they've been in the business. If they're working with a hard money lender versus like a conventional type of lender, you're going to have so many different exit strategies per se, or different ideas on how to make a deal work. Like, okay, this purchase price is too high. I can't pay that in order to flip this. However, if you want to sell it, I can give you your number if you're going to do seller financing for me. Well, now it's a win-win. The investor's hitting their numbers that they need to hit in order for the deal to make sense, and the seller is getting the price that they need in order to make the deal work for them to the point where they want to sell it. So there's different strategies and different ways to go about deals, and I think it just depends on how savvy the person is or isn't. But you're like, I'm at a point now kind of where I'm working with very savvy investors. Like, you know, I've closed multiple deals this year so far with the same couple people. So there's just a different level of experience when you get to certain levels. Obviously, when you're playing in the ballpark that I've lately been playing in, which is big commercial multifamily, those people are much savvier. They have their whole team to underwrite. Like, they know exactly where they need to be. Hey, you know, this seller financing deal isn't going to work at 50%, but if he's willing to do a 70% with a 10-year carry back, like, that's something that can make the deal work. So I think it's just getting to know people and really focusing on a niche. Like, now I've kind of gotten like the single family and the residential multifamily under wraps. Like, that's easy. Those you kind of just look at and you're like, okay, is the rent roll at least larger than 1% of the purchase price? And if it's not, you don't even really bother looking at it. If you're that far off, on to the next. So there's just like little things that you can do to just quickly at a glance say, can this work or does this not work at all? And a lot of the times I would say maybe 2 in every 10 deals actually make sense, or 1 in every 10 deals actually make sense for the most part. But again, if you can get creative, there's a lot of different strategies. If y'all are interested in learning those, I'd watch Pace Morby and Jerry Norton. They do like a whole series on, I think it's on Jerry's page, so like Flipping Mastery. They do a whole series on creative financing techniques. So I would say that there's a good place to start.
I guess I want to kind of like swing back in terms of, I asked you a question about like misconceptions, but I've experienced this with some realtors, not all realtors. And when you use words like savvy and kind of like the connections, etc., I want to talk to you about wholesalers, right?
My favorite.
Yeah, connections and relationships with wholesalers. Like, what's the importance of that? Because I honestly feel it depends on I honestly feel like it depends on the realtor. There's realtors that I don't want to work with wholesalers, and there are some where it's like, oh yeah, if you don't want to work with them, I'll gladly work with them because you kind of see the return and value there. So can you talk to us about the importance in that?
Yeah. So most, I know a lot of agents who don't even know what wholesalers are. I know a lot of agents who don't even know what off-market deals are. And frankly, those are people I don't really care to do business with because we're just in different worlds per se. So people have this misconception and wholesalers have like a negative connotation to them where people think that they're scamming. So personally, being a licensed agent, I don't feel ethically correct doing wholesaling myself, like getting properties under contract, only because, so for anyone who doesn't know what wholesaling is, essentially, we'll just keep it simple. Let's say I'm a wholesaler and I'm going to come to you and say, I can pay you $100,000 cash for your house. Meanwhile, like your house is really worth like, someone would pay 160 for it. And I'm going to say, I could pay you $100,000 for your house. Being a licensed agent, I don't feel morally correct doing that because I know I could throw that up on the market or go to a private investor and say, hey, do you want this house? And then they'd probably come back at 140 or whatever. So I know that I could get them more money. But like with wholesaling, they're going to get the property under contract for $100,000 and then they're going to try to assign it to somebody depending on what it's actually worth. If it is worth $160,000 as is, then they're going to try to go assign that $100,000 contract to someone for a $160,000 contract. And now they're making $60,000. So the wholesaler now is going to make $60,000, which kudos to you. I freaking would love to do that, but I also don't have the time to do acquisitions to begin with. But so if an investor comes in and does that, well, now that wholesaler is making $60,000 and that seller just lost out, like if they had to pay a commission, let's say they just lost out on $45,000. So personally, I don't do it, but I love wholesalers. My first 2 deals in my first 6 days of being licensed were both with wholesalers. And my broker, who was a broker for like, I don't know, at least 30 years, had no clue what I was talking about. So that just leads me to believe that people really don't understand that. And they do have, people think that they're sneaky or that they're liars and whatever. And it's like, do your due diligence. If you know what you're doing and you're savvy, then you're going to know, hey, okay. Like I had one guy figure out, he's like, yeah, this wholesaler's probably buying this for $110,000 and he's assigning it to me for $138,000. Like he knew exactly where the numbers were, but he doesn't care because the numbers work for him. So as long as the numbers are working, I'm basically connecting a buyer to a wholesaler. That's essentially what I'm doing. And then the wholesaler is paying me for bringing a buyer because it's easier for me to bring them a buyer than for them to go and try to find a buyer if they don't have that, that like investment pool already. So I personally love wholesalers. A couple of them I'm super, super good friends with. So I love them. A lot of people don't, but a lot of investors also really like them.
I'm glad you touched on that. I'm really glad I asked that question because, again, depending on the realtor, some don't know. They're just not informed. And there is somewhat misinformation out there for sure.
I would say this is going to sound really bad, but I'm going to say it anyway because I'm real. That's why so many people get into real estate because you don't have to be smart to be a residential real estate agent. You don't need to be smart at all. When you're in the investment space, you definitely need to be a little bit more with it. You need to be more informed. You need to be more educated. You need to be probably a little bit more articulate because you're dealing with these people, you know, like this deal in South Dakota, like my developer from New York, he's probably going to spend to do what what we're thinking of doing. It's going to be like $100 million. Like whoever is at that level is going to be very smart, and you need to be close to that level of intelligence to be able to even converse with someone like that. So you don't have to be smart to do residential. Some of them probably are. I shouldn't even be calling myself anything else because I didn't go to school. Like I didn't go to college. I didn't graduate, but I've always been like a businesswoman, and that's my thing. And I think the investment space is more business oriented. Like you have to be a business minded person versus residential. It's, you know, more off of emotion and doesn't really have anything to do with upside or equity or anything like that. It's just strictly emotion.
And you hit it right on. I can't add anything on top of that. I really can't. I can't think of anything else to add on top of that. But again, there's conversations where like we've had so many different conversations offline, and every time I talk to you about like a potential deal, clarity. I get so much clarity because it's like, okay, this makes sense. Okay, this makes sense. And if I can't wholesale it, you know, there are different options out there from the creative finance standpoint. So I don't know, like it really does depend on who you get your information from, and you have to have a reliable source. So again, I've learned so much from just like picking your brain and just like watching what you do and how you do things. So for me, from the wholesaling side, it does make me feel good that like, okay, if I get something on the contract, I know from the buyer side, I got someone that could definitely help me out so we could, you know, see this till the end. So for me, like, I don't know, I'm so excited for that piece because again, it's a little less work for me, but you know, it kind of checks off all boxes for everyone else. So it means a lot. I guess like kind of like summing down towards the end of the interview, if you could summarize everything that we kind of like talked about today, like what would you want the takeaway message to be for the listeners or anyone watching?
Ooh, okay. Well, me being me, I'm instantly gonna go to put yourself first. Like you are priority. If you are not 100% and you are not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be successful in anything you do. If you run yourself to the ground, you're done. You're done for. You're not going to be as successful as you could be if you were putting yourself first. So I'm definitely going to say, make sure that you have that life and work balance and the self-care. Like the other day, I was like, I really need a self-care afternoon. I'm going to go to yoga and I'm going to go for a walk. And that's what I'm doing. And I'm putting my phone away because right now I am at the point where I'm about to snap. If one more person calls me, my phone is going to get broken on the ground. So it's just like, listen to yourself. If you need space, take that space, because if you burn out, there goes your money, there goes your clientele, and there goes your business. Because if you are burnt out, all of those get eliminated. So focus on like that self-care. And I know so many people instantly start reading, you know, books about success. And like I did that too. But I truly think if you start with the self-development, start with those books. Start there, because when your mind is right, everything else just flows so organically. And so, yeah, I would say self-help and business second. What else? Pick your niche. Be very intentional with what you're doing and be very, very, very intentional with who you're working with. I've had a couple of clients that have burnt me out. And now if I can tell somebody's going to be a high maintenance client, I just push them off to someone else because I don't want to deal with that. I'm like, you're going to give me way too much anxiety. Like, it's not worth it. I'll take my 25% and have a great day. But obviously if it's repeat business, but I will say that'll show you who is quote unquote savvy. Because those people generally don't need a lot of handholding. Like I have some guys who call me, they own a couple thousand units in, you know, the Northeast in general. And they're like, Hey, Carly, what'd you get this week? Have you gotten anything new and interesting? I got X, Y, and Z, or hey, nope, didn't get anything this week. Like, okay, circle back next week. Have a great weekend. Like the end, like short, concise conversations. So be very intentional with who you work with and who you surround yourself with. Because at the end of the day, it's the same with friends. You become an average of who you associate with. So if I'm hanging out with 5 investors who are freaking out about this, that, and the other, or getting this deal done, or, oh my God, this funding, or, oh my God, this project, well, then I'm going to become like an anxious, stressed out person. And I don't want that energy. So yeah, I would say those are probably the 2 things. And when you do really focus on a niche, like learn everything about that. Stop connecting with people, or not stop connecting with people, but stop intentionally trying to connect with people who aren't in your niche. Like, I don't talk to agents who are residential agents unless an organic conversation happens, because I'm not working in that space. So for me, it's kind of useless in a sense to know them, because if I were to get a referral from someone in another state, I have my core people who I'm going to already with that. I don't need to know 100 agents in Westport to figure out, oh, okay, do I want Susie, Joe, or Jim to do this property? Like, I have my go-to, and that's that. So I think don't intentionally chase people to network that aren't going to be useful for what you're trying to do. Surround yourself with the people that are doing what you want to do. And that is what I will say.
That was great. Yo, Carly, please shout out your social media. Where can people follow you? Where can people reach out if they do need your services, etc.?
Yeah. So wherever you are, I do deals all over. I have connections in the REO space. So, we get off-market bank-owned properties nationwide, multifamilies I get from, I think every wholesaler in the country has my contact information somehow. I don't know. But if you need off-market deals, whatever, my Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn handles are RE, like real estate with Carly. And that is also my email, rewithcarly@gmail.com. So whatever you need help with, if you need connections to hard money lenders, or if you personally want to start investing, I have a couple amazing friends that run investment courses as well. So I pretty much everything you need in the off market or, investment space, I got you covered.
Man, Carly, we do appreciate you. Hold on, I got to give you an applause. I ain't gonna lie. You were preaching today. I just love, again, I love the energy. I'm so thankful that we had the opportunity to actually do this. And again, I would just want to give you your flowers, because there is so much little things that you've done that for me, that was just an overall huge impact. And
Hearing
things
that,
yeah. No, you really never know the influence that you have in people. And I just got to let you know that, hey, didn't go in vain. So I greatly appreciate that. For the listeners, anyone listening or watching, however you're consuming this content, don't forget to like and subscribe to the St. Clair Speak Show. And of course, reach out to Carly. She's pretty dope. I told you she was cool, right? With that being said, I'll catch you guys. Yeah, I'll catch you in the next episode.